Welcome to this case study, and this is a case study of unhealed love and abandonment. Just to let matchmakers or anybody know, this case study has a dark side. But the point is that we wanted to highlight this case study because we could simulate the future and then explain the events that might happen. Now, matchmakers may not like this because matchmakers are compensated based on just matchmaking and not about how they live their lives. That is true. However, we just want to highlight this to show our capability. Now, can two people live together after an exceptional whirlwind of an affair and then later tie the knot? We will see. Here's the situation. So Chris and Stacey fell in love on the first date. It was magic. Second point is the asks from Stacey is, let's get married. But then Chris said, what's the hurry? Let's live together first and check out how things go. Then finally, this is something that has been on Stacey's mind, that she desperately wanted to have a family. And she dreamt of this for a long, long time. She loves Chris. And she knew what we were doing, so she reached out to us. What we do is all about decision intelligence. And there is nothing spooky here, because the whole thing is about physics. While everybody would look at two magnets below the paper over here in an objective way, we don't do that. We look at the subjective world and translate that back into objective. We translate the emotional to the rational. Behind the scenes, I can assure you there's a ton of analysis of these spiritual energies happening, which results in patterns after patterns after patterns, and then we get to do the real stuff, which is the forecasting we call decision intelligence. Back to the case study. This is the situation. And within Stacey, there's a big need to get married and then raise children. She found her true love. Now, whatever may be, there was something that Chris was hiding, and there was something that he was afraid of, for which Stacey reached out to us. So what we did is, we basically took these energies and put them together. Again, these are very simplistic view of looking at it, because what we do is extremely complex, but the analysis is much more elegant. So when we took these energy archetypes, we realized that there was something very interesting, and that is both of them had extreme abandonment issues from inner child trauma. So when we found that out, we said, why don't we merge or at least look at the energies together? And this is something we always look at because we want to find if there is a karmic or a destined relationship. And it seems there is. It is like as if the universe is pulling two people together. Now, Stacey has something that she hasn't told us yet, but we found it out, which is she has extreme need for commitment. Rather, very perfectionist way of commitment. Chris, on the other hand, has huge need for space. He doesn't like being controlled, yet he loves to control, sometimes even subjugate somebody. We also saw two red flags. The first red flag is Chris has gone through an immense amount of abuse at home, and it has created an immense amount of self-victimization as well. On the other hand, when that energy is related with Stacey's energy, we found something very shocking, which we will explain later. We also saw a third piece, which is Stacey can be very pushy in a relationship with him. In fact, to the limit where she might try to correct him. So when we understood these energies, we said there's a need to merge these energies together, and what we found was shocking, because this creates an intense amount of abandonment, mortality challenges. We would not even wish something on our enemies when people have this. So we said it is time for us to go back to Stacey and ask these questions, which is about the abandonment issues and childhood traumas. Well, what would Stacey do? Well, Stacey basically sold us on the idea that we are all making mistakes, everything was good. And of course, Stacey is a marriage dating coach for men going through divorce. We started to really doubt us, and we thought something was wrong. Stacey is telling us that we are making a mistake, but on the other hand, there's something she has not made peace with. This is where The subjective to objective matters because clients always lie. We have built a system where we can now understand the core understanding of a human being. It is so accurate. Now we can not only understand the person well, we can understand different parts of the psyche and their past as well and find the different patterns to find predictability. Why do we do that? Because the past is always the future. This is what we want to bring to matchmakers because there's so much of information we can provide. Matchmakers would understand how to navigate the situation and ensure that people find love. So what happens is once we put Stacey and Chris in this system, we realized that we could bring her past, we could also model her present, and then finally the future. So we simulated Chris and Stacey, and the result is this. So when we simulated Chris's timeline a couple of years forward, we found something very, very shocking, which is they had a pattern at a certain point of time, and this is all about Chris, that is downright crazy. We won't even wish this on our enemies, and people don't handle this well. But this is even more crazy. It creates a warlike situation between two people. So we simulated this for Stacey as well, and we found that exact pattern. What do? We went to Stacey. She's after all a client and she pays us heavily. We explained all these elements for one entire week. But what did she do? She did not listen. Well, maybe the universe had a plan. The point being, here is how the analysis is. That if you look at what Chris is and his background, you'll see it is very different from that of Stacey. So which means Stacey wanted to have a family desperately, and she believed that Chris is the one because she has had so many failures in her relationships, which actually made her a pretty good divorce prevention consultant. But whatever may it be, I believe that it is important to explain what happened ultimately. Where did things end up? Well, as I said, it's a dark side. Fights broke up. Insecurity, control issues, abandonment issues simply plagued this couple who started cohabitating. Ultimately, the relationship became extremely, extremely abusive, followed by Stacey's world completely crumbling, and she thought Chris was her savior. Chris became violent and then moved away. And then finally, we don't know what happened to Chris, but I know that Stacey spent 4 years going through an extremely tough time. Well, this case study does have a very dark side, but we wanted to highlight this to matchmakers so they understand how accurate we can be with our archetypal patterns. Please reach out to us. I hope you understood the value of this case study.